I'd also like to thank you for allowing me into your homes for this 17th edition of Season 2 of Esoteric Science Roundtable. Excuse me. I would like to begin by thanking everyone that took the opportunity to come out to our metaphysical / philosophical meetings that we host the third Wednesday of every month at Opal Divines. We had a good turnout and it's a lively debate, or not debate rather, but lively discussion, and there were quite a few people and what have you, and so it was overall a good turnout. I'd like, again, to thank everyone that took the opportunity to come out. And always, I get a tremendous amount of reassurance and to re-acknowledge a lot of things as well when I'm able to speak to people that have interest in this type of things, and to see their particular area of interest or the particular projects that they may be involved in, that they're actually doing things to make a difference in trying to help salvage humanity in their own way. And so again, it is quite reassuring and comforting to see so many people like-minded in that respect that are trying to do something in their own way to bring forth some alleviation to the suffering of the race and to bring some fuller expression forward. And I do thank everyone, again, that took the time to come out for the meeting. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Mike from Del Castillo for inviting me out last Saturday to their show, that great triple bill, Los Lonely Boys, Del Castillo, and Los Tres Heebie-Jeebies that was last Saturday. I really appreciate that and enjoyed the show quite a bit. Thanks so much. Today I would like to discuss receptivity. Some of you may have seen the show titled today, Receptivity, and receptive to what might be a good place to start and to kind of flesh that out a bit. And as far as receptivity, what I'm hoping to try to bring across in today's discussion is essentially each individual person's capacity to be receptive, and also the flow that, and somewhat really the chain of the flow, if you will, as to how light, again, the light, divine light, as opposed to light from a bulb or man-made light, but how light filters down and how love also circulates and makes its way around, and how we're able to make use of this transcending energy and how it makes its way from higher aspects to ultimately the physical plane, and how this energy is put into circulation and how it can be used and recognized. Now again, considering this energy as light or love, and how different people are going to be more receptive to that particular to that concept, and how they're going to be able to take that into themselves, that quality into themselves, and in turn express that quality. And so again, various people are going to be receptive to different levels to be able to take this information in and to be able to make it a part of themselves and to be able to use it, and again, to have some creative expression come forward as a result of this understanding. And so again, there is a definite chain of command that takes place that allows this energy actually to differentiate itself and to move down in a process. And it is like a step-down sort of process. If anyone's familiar with the terms from electronics as far as a step-down transformer and what that entails, as far as taking a high amount of energy and stepping it down so that it can be useful for the lesser. And that's an important concept to keep in mind. And so keeping in mind again that the different forms are going to be adequate to certain amounts of receptivity. And so we could gauge that in various ways if we want to look at individual people and see how perhaps the people that are a bit more aware of world events, that are a bit more perhaps politically motivated, or maybe they're concerned about the environment and humanitarian concerns and things along these lines, we can look at these individuals and see them and put them in relation to the whole and see how they play their own receptive part. And certainly we can look at two analogies within the human body as well, that we have sensory receptive centers all along our body, throughout our body, that allow us to have the different aspects of our body receive impulse, receive energy, and to exchange as well. And so what may be experienced for instance, hitting one's finger or hitting one's hand. It may not be fully felt in the toes, for instance, but nonetheless, the whole body does reverberate at some level. And so this receptivity, if we can think about this, does carry through and permeates all things. And so we can tap into this living light, if you will, and also we can tap into it and make use of it, and also exchange this energy. And that's part of understanding more of a whole, thinking of things as far as a collective or a whole as opposed to individuals, and that ultimately all things are shared at the higher levels, and that they find their way to filtering down for individual use. And so again, this chain of communication makes its way from what we would term initially the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit aspect. And then it finds its way from that collective further down and differentiates itself further, and again splits itself further and further, fractures and splits further and further. And so that even at the very most minute levels of creation, at the atomic level, this energy has found its way and filtered its way down for their use, for their animation, and for their livingness, and for their vitality. And so we can see that take place if we care to study and engage from the whole. And again, taking the opportunity to see how from the vast expanse of energy at the origin of our manifestation, how this filters down, and how there is a definite like a ladder, or different ways you can look at it in analogy as far as how it makes its way down and how it is shared ultimately for the benefit of all. And so if I could go to this chart that's behind me here and speak about it for a few minutes, I want to try to elaborate by using this to kind of explain how this energy does find its way and filter down. And I wasn't able to use this whole chart, but I want to emphasize this particular portion that I have here in front of me. And this, if you care to look at the top, the 7 rays, and it says the rays of aspect, the rays of attribute. If we look at 1, will or power, 2, love, wisdom, and 3, active intelligence, those 3 aspects, those 3 individualized titles there, those refer to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Will or power would refer to the Father, love, wisdom would refer to the Son, and active intelligence would refer to the matter aspect, or our human condition. And so those 3 aspects, if we keep in mind the Trinity, and how from 1 there's a division into 3, and then we can look at how there's a division from 3 into 7, as far as this particular energy, this light, love, what have you, is often termed ray energy. And that being the case, there are 7 rays ultimately, and this is also known as the 7 kingdoms before the throne, and there are different other terminologies that describe it from various literature and what have you. But nonetheless, these different 7 attributes, or these 7 rays rather, aspect and attribute respectively, make everything that is in manifestation. And so things may be an amalgamation or a blend of different ray energy. Just like within our physical body, we can look at 5 aspects of how this ray energy differentiates itself. Personality, our emotional level, our mental level, the soul level, and the dense physical body, and how that all has a ray or a quality that combines to make each person who they are, and to give us our own unique characteristics and capacities and qualities. And so if we understand and care to consider this 7 rays, one example that we can use to give us an analogy that might be helpful is to consider that there are also 7 distinct colors. If you put white light through a prism, you're going to get 7 distinct colors that ray out. And this is probably the best analogy. Also, there are 7 notes in a musical scale, then the 8th would be the octave of the next following scale. And so we see the 7, the pattern of 7, being reflected in creation, and how these 7 rays, so-called, these 7 differentiations of God, find their way into manifestation, and how they amalgamate, blend, and come together to make anything that we care to view, whether that be plant, man, animal, mineral, anything in manifestation is, at its highest level, a blend of these energies. And so, keeping that in mind, we are, again, intermediaries or exchangers, and we have a duty with this energy. And so we're the ones that are responsible for the exchange of this energy as far as humanity is concerned. And obviously, the more understanding and aware one is of this whole process, the more one can be the best receptor possible, and then can bring in the utmost amount of energy and the highest quality of energy possible. And so that is an ongoing process, and that's expressed by the term esoteric science and all that entails. But actually, I would like to go back to the chart a bit longer and to discuss from the 7 rays and the 3 aspects as far as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or will or power, love, wisdom, and active intelligence, respectively. Again, the Trinity, or the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit aspect, that we see that, again, mirroring the relationship between, again, the Father in heaven, the Son, or if you want to choose to use the term, the planetary hierarchy as it's listed in the middle of the diagram there, that would reflect the group of individuals that are those that stand and watch the race and work behind the scenes to help and guide and influence the minds of men, so that this expression of divine rays can find their way through the proper individuals that can express this ray energy and can bring forth the proper creation and activity in their own lives, in their own areas. And so this whole process, if we stop to think about this process as coming from a point of, well, really, anytime any kind of intelligence is coming forward, it finds its way through this whole process. And so initially the energy, or the ray energy, finds its way into manifestation, and then as individualized consciousness becomes aware of this whole plan, this whole process, then individualized consciousnesses, the individualized people that are aware of this, can start to make their way back to a return, back to this ray energy, and back to a larger, more inclusive aspect of work. And so, that being the case, this intermediary body, those that guide and watch over our race and that work with us intimately, Christ and the Church Invisible would be another term that you could use if you so choose, that this body, again, allows for the evolution of man. This whole process allows for our evolutionary unfoldment. And so we find our way back from humanity, coming closer to God in the respect of the hierarchy. And so we go from humanity into hierarchy as we've advanced and expressed those qualities, and we've become perfect, so-called, relatively speaking, and that we can be considered a part of this body called hierarchy. Now, certainly there are intermediary steps between humanity, because humanity itself is at varying levels. And so we could see, if we choose to speak about this a bit further, that as far as humanity making its way back, that there are going to be different steps, just like climbing a ladder. And so that from the lowest aspects of humanity, from the lowest levels of consciousness that make one human, that being self-conscious, even the lowest aspects of self-consciousness, nonetheless, it is an aspect of self-consciousness, and once we're human, we're human. It doesn't matter how low of an evolution or however, whatever term you want to put on it, how that relates. Nonetheless, it still is a piece of humanity, or a part of humanity, and it's going to eventually find its way back along this chain of command, back ultimately to the will aspect. And so finding its way back again through these different ranks and grades, from the basest aspects of humanity, we start to climb that long ladder, back to divinity. And so we find our way, again, in some intermediary places, and some of those terms would be aspirant, or disciples, or initiate. All of those terms factor in for us part of this whole process. And so if we choose to take some of the examples of some of the highest culminations of this energy and this work in our evolutionary process, Christ most assuredly would have to rank very high, as he is still for us the teacher alike of angels and men and the eldest brother in the race of our humanity. And so he's a very good example for us. And also Buddha, and I put a mark over to what would be my left, and some parentheses that say Vesak and the May full moon. And I want to emphasize that relationship with Buddha as well, because this evolutionary process is an ongoing, continuous process. Once we've transcended past this Earth evolution, there is still work that needs to be done that is of a larger unfolding, but nonetheless ties these certain great individuals back to this Earth evolution, and also keep it linked to larger aspects of our solar system and ultimately to the cosmic level as well, in that we still evolve through humanity further and further, higher and higher, until we eventually evolve into a more cosmic understanding and awareness and scope. And so that process, again, is ongoing. And Buddha would be the emissary that would reflect that condition of someone that has left the condition of the earth life, but has neglected one's final stay in what would be called nirvana, a place of spiritual bliss, which is a higher condition than what we would term as heaven, if you want to consider it that way. But nonetheless, he's passed on his opportunity for his final reward so that he could continue to do work in the service to humanity and maintain himself as a living link. The work that Buddha set out to do was to instill the quality of wisdom, which he did quite well and successfully. And then unto that was added by our other brother, great brother Christ, the quality of love. And so you see that quality, love, wisdom, representing the second aspect of the Trinity. And so this relationship continues to this day. And also, as far as tying this to a cosmic level, beneath Buddha, I've drawn an arrow to the word Sirius, and that would reflect the star system Sirius. And in turn, I've also, in the middle, written Pleiades, and over to my right would be Draco. Excuse me. And so I want to speak about that relationship a bit as well, as far as how there is a cosmic evolution into a larger unfolding of understanding, a larger unfolding of understanding, and that this relationship again continues. And so Buddha is this emissary that, having passed on to this larger work, has tied himself into a lodge, which is a greater lodge than we have here on Earth, that is related to Sirius. And so this great lodge on Sirius, and certainly the term lodge may be familiar to certain individuals, as far as there being a white lodge, a black lodge, and then as far as our humanity, different lodges, whether that be a Theosophical lodge, a Masonic lodge, and the different things that indicates for us. So anyway, the term lodge has solar and cosmic ramifications for us. And we can see how our Earth humanity does progress through this chain of evolution to find its way into, again, solar and then ultimately cosmic. So Buddha is a good example, as well, the prime example actually, of this relationship of how he is in touch with Sirius, and he is a part of the lodge with Sirius, but nonetheless maintains a relationship. And in particular, at the time of the May full moon, the Vesak festival, when all of the Buddhist individuals gather to celebrate, and this would have kind of, you can equate Vesak to Easter for the Christians, and it's probably their main festival. And that being the case, this is an opportunity for Buddha to come back to our Earth and to bring his consciousness and localize it in a particular area of our globe, and then a ceremony takes place based on this relationship, in which an energy exchange is maintained and kept up periodically. And again, the cycles of the full and the new moon, and from the waning, from the waning to the waxing of the moon, and that whole process we could see take place. And so, again, there are different aspects of this Trinity, so-called, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, that tie in to other solar bodies. And that being the case, again, Buddha tying us, and the lodge, the White Lodge of Christ and the Church Invisible, tying that lodge on Earth to a greater lodge, a solar lodge in Sirius, and how that ties in, and how that energy exchange is very valid. Also, the hierarchy and the Pleiades, and how that star system affects us as well. And then on to Draco, and I've put that above the active intelligence, or what would reflect our humanity, the man in the street and on above. So Draco, we can relate to that globe and that star system as being where we get our reptilian influence, the reptilian visitors that you hear so much about from different various camps. And I wanted to tie this, our planetary hierarchy, and the will of the Father of this planet in with that larger group, to show that this planet has a very important place. And so these star systems influence and intermingle with us to this day. And so people that are more familiar with the UFO community and what all that entails, and some of the things that have come out through that body of knowledge and study, might have a bit of understanding as far as these star systems that you tend to hear quite often from these contactees and these individuals that have supposedly met entities from other planes, other planets, other places in our galaxy, that you tend to hear often. Syrian, which is you can equate with a dog star, and there's a lot of Egyptian ties to Sirius as well. And then ultimately to the Masonry, that's borrowed a lot from Egyptian symbology, and the Masonic Lodge, as that ultimately filters down that lodge concept. Grouping a group, the concept of a group coming together, and usually for wisdom purposes, for enlightenment purposes, and for the helping of individuals, that these lodges are formed, generally speaking. And so again, we hear a lot of times of, again through the UFO community, of the Syrian contactees and the Pleiadian contactees. And there are a couple of women that have written quite a few books about the Pleiadian contact. And these Pleiadians allegedly resemble quite a bit our humanity. And so, again, that just goes to further show the ties. Now, and I'm not here to say that we are the genetic children of these star systems exclusively. I think there is more to our cosmology, or the evolution of our unfoldment, this of everything in manifestation, than us just being a product of some other civilization, and that we're just the star children of some great race. I do think there is definitely an influence, and certainly we see this exchange and interaction going on, and so it's good to be aware of it. But nonetheless, I don't want to emphasize too much the whole alien, as far as them being our gods or what have you. That's a lot of people try to make those connections. I give humanity a bit more credit than that, and I think that we, by being inherently divine, have a lot more inherent in us than a lot of these alien these entities would care to let us know about, and definitely certainly our government doesn't want us to know about. And so these exchanges certainly do take place, and there's a growing body of evidence that shows that these other entities from other places are traveling, visiting, and exchanging quite a bit with us, our humanity. And so it's good to kind of take a look at this in relation to our governing body, as far as the governing body behind the scenes, Christ and the Church Invisible, and ultimately the will of God, and how these things corroborate and tie together. This energy exchange is much more vast than just our planet. And to think that our planet is just insignificant and unimportant would be a great mistake as well. Again, these other entities are not coming and visiting us all this distance for no reason. There's a definite reason why they're coming here, and they're interacting with us now. And that is largely due to this transition opportunity that we have available for us now. And different people are looking at that in different ways as well. But nonetheless, generally speaking, the 2012 year, the benchmark or hallmark year that's going to portend possible change and is an indicator of a pivot point that's going to allow us to shift over into a greater understanding and a creative capacity and awareness, and all these things that are associated with a golden age, an age of enlightenment, an age of the unfolding of spirit, and everything that that entails. And so we see this expression coming forward. And again, keeping in mind that the earth is a very integral and key component to the larger equation, and to never ever, please don't ever take that for granted, that we are indeed quite powerful and that we have an important role to play in the larger scheme of things. And that is why, again, there are those individuals that are taking the time to come and view what's going on here and to see us through, in some levels, this transition time. Because again, it's more than just our humanity that is involved and that has an opportunity for this further growth and exchange. So again, we're on the brink of a lot of these things. And that also ties into to why you see all of the ratcheting and all of the stepping up of the programs to enslave us by the bodies that tell our world leaders what to do. They're very well aware of these circumstances, and they're also very much in cahoots with certain aspects of this extraterrestrial community, and so there have been exchanges and deals made in that respect as well that allow for some cabals and amalgamations of power to take place that are not always in our best interest, but ultimately at some level we have accepted and acknowledged this enslavement, and it's of our own choosing. We hold our chains in our own hands, and so really if we choose to get rid of this paradigm that we're trapped in and that's somewhat unsavory to many individuals, it really is just a matter of realizing and offering back these chains to those that have given them to us initially. It can almost be as easy as just flicking a switch in a sense too, as far as just from coming from a level of non-understanding to a level of understanding. It's just the aha factor that creeps in. It's the whole shift could be as quick and as sudden as that. It may not be the best and optimum for all individuals and all the lives that make up our planet and that would be affected by that kind of exchange and sudden change. But nonetheless, we do see indicators, very much so, becoming more and more evident and apparent that are showing us how this coming together, this amalgamation, is coming into being. Now also, there are a lot of individuals that are completely unreceptive to a lot of these concepts and a lot of maybe the term spirituality, God, what have you, and they're living their own paradigm, their own life based on their own belief system that is not acknowledging of some of this larger reality that I would term it, but fantasy perhaps for others. But nonetheless, that being the case, there is a level of receptivity, as I've chosen to call the show today, receptivity. There's a level of receptivity for different individuals, and certain people are going to be more receptive to certain concepts and ideals than others. And it takes a great deal of love and understanding for individuals to accept and allow our loved ones and individuals around us to stay in a place of perhaps fear, anxiety, uncertainty, these things that, again, these chains that are of our own design that we keep upon ourselves by our own making. If there are those that choose to keep these chains and keep blinders on and keep themselves isolated from a larger reality, that ultimately is their choice, and we have to accept that. And so that, again, takes a great deal of understanding, a great deal of allowing, and ultimately, first and foremost, love, a great deal of love to just let go and allow individuals to be who they want to be, whether or not it, certainly we see certain individuals and we can look at lifestyles and we can see very easily, certain lifestyles are not good lifestyles and they're going to lead to further hurt for individuals. And also often lifestyles are going to affect a family unit and then, friends and out from there. And so we find ourselves being the center of our own little activity in that respect also. And so certainly there are those that are going to choose a more negative paradigm, a more negative approach. And that's what they're going to choose as their way of thinking, their way of feeling. And again, we have to try to be accepting and acknowledging that certain people are going to want to be that way. And it's there are certain things we can do to help them to alleviate some of that suffering, as I speak about on the show often. I think it is our duty to see what we can do to gauge ourselves and to see what expressions we can offer up to help the salvaging of the race. We all can do things if we so choose. It's just a matter of gauging ourselves, checking ourselves, and seeing where best we can serve. What are our qualities and capacities and God-given abilities? Now also, again, then comes in the concept of discretion or discrimination in light of knowing who to tell what and who not to tell what, as far as imposing on somebody, or maybe not imposing, but just trying to suggest, offer a hint, a pointer, some words of advice, some loving encouragement, all of these things, all these terms we can consider. You know, how can we offer up to individuals, and how can we gauge their level of receptivity? That's a key thing, because certainly we don't want to go around blowing wide open people's paradigms or gloating in the fact that, hey, I know this information and you don't, because again, that's very disempowering, and that is not based on love, which I think ultimately we have to come from that center of love in order to have a real understanding of this information and to put it into practical expression. And so again, I want to emphasize it is key and crucial to be aware and to keep our eyes open for opportunities that we can help others, most assuredly, because we can help. All of us can do something to help and alleviate suffering if we so choose. It's just a matter, again, of being a bit discriminative and a bit discerning and being selective as to the timing and as to who you feel confident that you might be able to speak to about certain issues. Again, there's the receptivity factor, and it ties in again to magnetism, and how certainly one may be more drawn to certain people and they may not be drawn to certain individuals, depending. We feel those things out and we gauge those things, and we're basically like walking barometers, constantly checking and measuring our little environment around us. And so we can send out our feelers and we can sense to a certain degree, and the more we practice it, the more we'll become proficient in it, and we can make it a more potent quality in our lives, as far as seeing those opportunities, knowing the times, and seeing how we can, again, find maybe a chink in the armor or a little way that we can get some information across to somebody that may not have been receptive to it otherwise, that may just not want to hear it whatsoever. But we can find ways that we can get, again, a little subtle something across to these individuals and lay seeds for future unfoldment. That's a key too. Excuse me. We can't expect always that what we say to individuals, again, the seed planting concept, that this seed would take root immediately and plant, that would there would be an expression of some fruit immediately. All things that are good are going to have to take some time to, again, have some unfolding and have some expression. And so certainly there are certain things we can say that we may not see an immediate reaction, but maybe a week later, a month later, or a year later, or maybe even longer than that, we get some kind of acknowledgement down the road that, hey, that what was said, what was indicated, what was, the loving advice offered, what have you, that it did find its way ultimately, and that that individual was able to make some use of it. And we can see that's like a domino effect. It's a reciprocal, it's an energy exchange, and that is basically the whole idea of love, and how that love energy finds its way to the different receptacles, our individual humanity, animal, plant, mineral. It all steps itself down to be made available for all individuals. And so as to how we are making ourselves receptive, how much we choose to receive, because we are the ones ultimately that are the gatekeepers as to what we choose to bring in, what media we want to bring in, whether that be the television, books, radio, any number of things. We are the gatekeepers, and so we are the ones that are going to be receptive to whatever degree we allow ourselves to be. And so each person is going to be, again, a barometer of receptivity. So certain people are going to be more receptive or sensitive, if you want to use that term, to the what's going on, and they're going to be it's like a beehive mentality, that there's a buzz going on at certain times in certain areas, that certain individuals are just going to be more in tune and in tap to the larger reality. And I think Austin Access Television is a grand example of that, that you have a whole host of individuals down here, the hosts of Access, actually, especially a lot of the live shows, that are a bit more clued in and that have their receptors quite wide open, and they're able to draw in a lot of information. They're able to discern it, and they're able to process it, and they're able to turn back around and offer some commentary that is insightful and hopefully helpful to individuals out there in this area, and to hopefully, again, inspire the individuals that receive the information to go forward and find their own creative expression. I cannot emphasize that point enough, and I probably will hammer that point home every show for the remainder of the time I'm on the air, that we have to decide what our own God-given abilities are and accentuate those abilities. What can we do in our lives to help out the whole process? If we so choose, it's entirely up to us. We can be as receptive as we want to be, and we can be as drastic and dramatic of changers as we choose to be. It's up to us really as to what degree of intensity we choose to express as far as love, anger, resentment, indifference, indignance, anything you can think of. It's up to us as to what we choose to reflect. And so us being receptors, living receptors of light, we can have a living lighted link around the entire globe that is an expression of this energy exchange from individual to individual to individual, and then on down to the lower kingdoms, and then again above to our higher, more evolved kingdoms. That exchange can constantly be nurtured and be made aware of and accentuated. It's just a matter of being aware of it and choosing, having the will and the motivation to want to, again, tap into that energy, because we all tap into it. It's just some are more conscious of it and some are less conscious of it. So the more conscious we are of our tapping in, the more conscious we are of the receptivity quality, that's going to allow for just an explosion, really, a grand explosion, an exponential flowering forth, a blossoming forth of this fuller expression. It's really, one can affect many, and we see that more so and more so, that just individuals placed in the proper spots can affect change in a large way. And so that is certainly my hope, as far as me trying to offer up a few simple ideas, comments, suggestions in respect to this body of knowledge that would hopefully allow some insight, and it would hopefully encourage some fuller unfoldment. And again, that's certainly my hope, that we can be the fullest receptors and the most the highest quality receptors possible. It's certainly up to us, and it's as to what we choose to filter in and pass along, it's very much up to us. That's our work and that's our choice. And so again, I encourage us to be the highest level receptors that we possibly can. Let me go ahead and grab a call and see what's going on this evening. Hello, caller, you on there?
Hello.
How's it going?
Let me turn my TV down a little. I just tuned in, and I didn't really catch the whole beginning of the show, but I just, right now during a time where we're possibly going to war and everything, and there's a lot of people passing on like aggression with their opinions and stuff, and not being very tolerant. I just wanted to say thanks for at least, talking about being tolerant and receptive to other ideas, and not really with an aggressive kind of I guess momentum to what you're trying to say or whatever.
Yeah,
I was just watching, cable news, and everything's being so politicized about this administration and that, and kind of just preaching hate and talking about war and everything. And it's just, I guess, refreshing to see something talking about being tolerant and receptive to other people's ideas, no matter how extreme, strange, or whatever they may be, but just to kind of be, I guess, chilled out about it.
That's a good way. Yeah, just being tolerant of other people's opinions and ideas, and allowing of other people to be the way they want to be, who they want to be. And also, really, if you consider it too, the individuals on this globe, the vast majority of them do not want this war. They don't want any war. There's just a handful of this military-industrial complex dictatorship that's causing this to play itself out. And they're doing it in spite of our wishes and our wants. And really, it's very unfortunate But if the people could really come together and realize it, I know it would take a lot for that to happen, quite frankly, on a global scale. But we see it. We see that there were, just the other week, over 100 million people worldwide marching for peace and marching against this war on Iraq. And so that is certainly my hope. When I see these people coming together globally, and when you see mass demonstrations all around the globe in these large cities, and again, people coming together, various backgrounds, for one common theme, that is, peace, love, understanding, tolerance, that is a definite good indicator. And I would hope that people would concentrate more so on the numbers of people as opposed to these handful of individuals that you see getting propped up that are policymakers that are making policy that most of us don't really agree with. Is there anything else you care to add this evening?
No, I just keep up the good work and, at least something positive I've seen today.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate
All right,
that.
bye.
Pass that positive energy along. That's your responsibility, is to pass that energy along to somebody else and take that receptivity, take that positivity, and make it positive. We can project that positivity out, and it just goes on and on and on, and we can, again, have that living, lighted expression amongst all people on this globe, and it can be nothing but helpful for us. So let me go ahead and grab another call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hey, yeah, I was calling about the whole war with Iraq thing.
Go ahead.
Well, I've been kind of thinking about it and doing some research on it, and even though everyone's saying, it's a bad idea and all,
Right.
there's tons of good reasons why, there should be a regime change in Iraq, like mainly the fact that Saddam's got all those nuclear weapons, chemical, biological.
Does he have nuclear weapons?
Oh, we haven't found them because, he's hiding them.
Well, do we know he's hiding them? And actually, ask yourself this, who gave him all of the weapons when he was fighting against Iran back in the 80s? Who armed him initially?
Well, you see, the thing is, though, you make a mistake, you got to pay the price and make up for it. You don't sit back and go ahead and let, crazy person.
When you say we, who is this we you're describing as well? The American people and the people of the world in large numbers do not want this transition, or as far as they may want a regime change, but as far as it to take place in the conflict in the war with Iraq, I think the vast majority of people don't want that in their hearts. But certainly a regime change would be a welcome thing to many, many people globally. But we have to understand, if you really want to get to the politics of it, and I think a lot of other shows do a much better job than I do, these people are propped up in positions of power, and they're made up as boogeymen. Excuse me, whether it's bin Laden or Saddam Hussein, that we bring him out of the closet when we need him. So, I mean, it's all contrived if you really choose to look at it. So there's much more going on, I think, than meets the eye, quite frankly. Is there anything else you care to add?
Well, I was just thinking, you're saying it's contrived. Like, what's contrived? He is insane. The man has done numerous terrorist acts on, innocent people. And I think that it's time people stop standing around and actually start acting on that.
Well, I appreciate your comments, but I mean, it would really, and no disrespect, it would take me way too long. I only have about 15 minutes left to try to comment on how extensive the wool pulling over the eyes, and how extensive and how intricate this whole process is, and how that, yes, he's just a player, and just Bush is just a player. These guys, they're not the real power brokers, and that they're being used and manipulated for larger agendas behind the scenes. Again, I mean, I apologize for not being able to elaborate more, but it's just so comprehensive, I cannot possibly even hope to get into it in this waning minutes of the show. But thank you for taking the time to view nonetheless, and I would say at the very least, we can offer our positive expressions, hopes, thoughts, and our love towards the troops in spite of the fact that we don't agree with the action they may be about to take. Because if they have in their hearts a patriotic duty and response to this country, and that is their way of expression and service, we have to, again, be allowing and accepting of that and understand that that is their choice. Certainly we can educate them, and I think that's part of our obligation too, but those that, again, don't want to get that point of receptivity, then that's when we have to say, hey, we're going to allow you guys to be the ones that go over into armed combat for your beliefs. And we thank you for that, and we respect you very much for that. And I think that's the least we can do. I know that sounds a bit odd, and that may sound a bit hypocritical to some, but nonetheless, that's my outlook on it. I'll go ahead and grab another call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hi, how are you doing this
Good, yourself?
Hey, I'm a longtime fan, first-time caller.
Thanks.
I've heard you're very well-versed in various origins of creationism, but one thing I haven't heard you talk about very much is Scientology, and I myself am a Scientologist, and I'm wondering how you would juxtapose the learnings of Scientology versus the other religions you spoke of tonight?
Well, if you wouldn't
what
mind,
tenets
you
they
being
share and what they are different.
well, you being a Scientologist, by your own admission, perhaps you would care to give a brief thumbnail sketch of the beliefs of a Scientologist in relation to a cosmology or a creation or evolution.
Okay, well, the closest thing we have to the omnipotent presence of the divine would be galactic overlord Xenu, who was detonated in a volcano 75 million years ago, along with numerous others in a huge holocaust. And that results in the thetans, which bind together in clusters in our bodies. And that's what controls us, and that's why we pay so much money to learn how to get rid of these thetans. And we're hated on a lot by the population for our beliefs, but getting rid of these thetans is the way. As far as Iraq goes, at the Church of Scientology, on the drag tomorrow, there is a huge pro-war demonstration, and we hope everyone will come out and be there, because we Scientologists believe that Iraq should be made into the 51st state in the McDonald's!
Okay. All right then. Scientologist or not Scientologist? You folks out there in TV land, make up your own decisions on that. Thanks for taking the time to view and call nonetheless. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
He's got skid marks.
Sorry?
He's got skid marks.
Alrighty. You must be psychic. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Saddam and all those hippies are a bunch of
Today must be Scholar Caller Day or something. But anyway, let me just try to recap a bit about the whole concept of receptivity and our responsibility, should we choose to accept it, as far as being receptive to anything, whether it be what I'm saying, what these callers are espousing, any number of things that you may be exposed to, whether that be through media, a teacher in school or university, something you hear on the radio, what have you. Excuse me. We are living transmitters constantly. And so as to how much we choose to receive or transmit is entirely up to us. Even during our sleeping hours, we are still receiving and transmitting, and we're still working on ourselves and improving ourselves and all of the rest that's involved with that, for us to get up the next day and to continue building, to continue growing, continue evolving, and continue learning and understanding about this expression of creativity. And so, again, I think the concept of receptivity in this respect is important, because we all are receptive, and some of us consciously choose to shut out information or certain feelings or certain thoughts, and we stifle these things. And when we have that non-release, and we have constipation, for lack of a better term, where the energy is not able to have a free expression and a free flow through the system, these are what lead to the congestive heart failures, cancer, and various other diseases that crop up. We don't have a free flow of expression. These health and well-being issues are they become real issues for us. And so if we are trying to be conscious of the fuller picture, then certainly diet and things like that are very important and key, and that's a good place to start. But it's also getting your head and your heart, in that place of receptivity, and being understanding and searching for something larger than oneself, because there is a great deal out there outside of this little small planet that still nonetheless is tied into our little planet. And so for us to be able to make use of that, I think is extremely important. It's extremely important for us. Let me go ahead and grab a call quickly. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, I just tuned in. I don't think I've ever seen you before, and I'm finding your show very refreshing.
Thank you.
I just have it's kind of personal, but at where I work, one of the people I work with has a very aggressive approach to life, and I find it difficult to work with this person and find feelings of hostility coming up in myself. Do you have anything that you might want to say about either blocking out those kinds of aggressiveness from other sources, or what I should do better with myself to be a better receptor?
Okay, that's a wonderful question. I'm glad you asked that. And that's what we all find that if we work during the day, then we find that in our office environments or wherever our workplace may be, that we have to exchange with other people whether that be customer service or whether it's just the individuals that we work with that are our co-employees. Certainly there are going to be attitudes and what have you, and sometimes they may conflict a bit. And an office is going to be an amalgamation of energies, and you all are pooling that energy together to make whatever you're working on, the projects you're working on, the work you're doing collectively at that job site. And so if there's a person with a negative energy, excuse me, then really you don't want to block so much as try to help that individual transmute that energy, or you yourself transmute that effect it's having on you. So it might be easier you could try to help this individual change himself and to realize at some level his aggressive tendencies, and the easiest way to start to do that is to send him light and love, and to hope that that these issues, these deep-seated issues in him, obviously, will somehow find some peace and some serenity within this individual, and so that he can have that fuller, peaceful expression that will carry over into his work environment, your work environment, and other areas of his life as well. And so you won't have that, hopefully, coming home to roost in the work environment repeatedly. That's kind of, it's tainting the pool of this energy with this negativity. And so you may want to consider speaking to other people in your office that you feel have the quality to help this guy change, that are aware of this energy, and to, again, collectively send him your light and love. Now, also don't expect an overnight change necessarily. Maybe you may, I don't know. But usually these things take a bit of time, and you can just gradually kind of work on them in that sense. And I've had to do this at many, many places that I've worked where there's all kind of crazy energy, and it's just a matter of consciously talking about it to certain people and consciously making that effort to get that energy right in that area. And so, again, it's a matter of your will and just expressing love and just sending out that love and nurturing and nourishing, and not to be resentful, and understand that the place that this individual is coming from is probably based on something, again, deep within him that he probably doesn't like himself, and he may not even be aware that he's overly aggressive in this sense also.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of your program.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice evening. Take care. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, man. I'm real tired of this world, man. It's like everything's turning to shit, man. It seems like everything's just turning opposite of the way it should be going, and ain't nothing going the right way. You know what I'm saying, man?
Well, it may seem like that to people, and I know it's, just like with anything bad, it's got to come to the surface and make itself known so that we can deal with it. So if you're feeling a little bit like discontent in your own life, or you're unhappy about things in your own particular life, again, that reflects outward. And if you're just taking the time to check out the negative things, which is easy to do, if you just watch the news or just look out your window or any number of things, you're going to be caught up in a lot of negativity a lot of times. But it's our obligation, I feel, to accentuate the positive things, because there are plenty of positive things. And all this negativity overwhelming us is ultimately an example for us of the good that's about to come, because all this bad has got to find its way into expression, so that we can see it and deal with it, and then we can get past it. So that's a good thing ultimately.
Hey, man, I'm happy with myself, but I don't think that this world's coming to a good. I think it's going to be totally changed, and it's going to go totally down the poop hole, down the toilet, and there ain't going to be nothing we can do about it. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on something we can do about it besides knowledge and knowing what's going on in our world and what's going on behind our backs. You know what I'm saying, man?
I think just trying to change our attitudes, that's the easiest thing. I mean, that may sound overly simple, that may sound just too simple, but really, I mean, if you're reflecting negativity and you feel that all is lost and that we're in a bad way, that's going to be your expression that you're going to have to live with. So until you start thinking otherwise, however that happens, whether somebody rubs off on you and throws you a little something that makes you change your way of thinking, or you get involved with some woman that just completely rocks your world and makes you think about things, or maybe you have a child, or, there's a lot of things that will have a life-changing effect on people. So, I would just encourage you to try to accentuate the positive and find the positive things in your life. But thanks for your call, and have a nice evening. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, you mentioned the year 2012 as a transitional year.
Yes.
Is that just something that you got from the Mayan calendar, or is there something
That is based
more
on the
to
Mayan calendar, very much so. It's the most accurate calendar that we have in our history, and it reflects a lot of things. Just like the Aztec calendar has already ended, it wasn't an end time, it was a transition time. And so the Mayan calendar, when it ends in 2012, will also be an indicator of a further opportunity for expression.
Is there any other types of calendar that would also coincide with that, or is that strictly from the Mayan?
The best of my knowledge, the Mayan calendar is pretty exclusive in that. There probably are some other calendars that probably either history or science is not aware of or does not want us to be aware of that would coincide. Time's a funny thing, and time is a relative thing, and I'm going to get more into that in the future as well. But nonetheless, the Mayan calendar does indicate for us just generally change, not an end time, but a change time, just cycles. It indicates it's an expression of cycles, basically.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a nice evening. Take care. Let me go ahead and grab another call quickly. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Hi.
I think you're to be commended for your sense of caring for others and your open-mindedness.
No, thanks.
I think you preach a good message, and I think you do a real credit to the community. The reason I was calling you tonight was I was flipping through the channels, and I happened to catch a couple of calls back. A young man claiming to be a Scientologist and started screaming at you.
Mm-hmm.
I myself am a Scientologist, and that is not the way we comport ourselves. This was obviously a smear attempt. We are, in fact, having a rally at the church tomorrow. I don't know who's trying to bring us down, but we will be there because we do support the war.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Jody Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an auditor with the Church of Scientology, and I'd like you to come down because I'd like to speak with you personally sometime.
You said this is Saturday?
No, this is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
9 a.m., Church of Scientology.
I don't know that I'll have an opportunity tomorrow, quite frankly.
Well, any time you can come down would be fine with me.
Okay. Well, if you're offering that as an invitation, I'll take you up on that.
Well, I'm prepared on the behalf of the Church of Scientology to offer you a generous donation. You spread a message of tolerance. We are a religion which has come down on far too often in today's society. We're outlawed in France and Germany as a cult.
Right.
And America is the only place which offers us the glorious freedom we need.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and I will take you up on that, and I'll head down there and see what's going on. It won't be, tomorrow, but it'll be in the near future. But thank you very much for your words. And I definitely, Scientology gets a very bad shake, and a lot of the musicians that I admire, Chick Corea, for instance, Stanley Clarke, they are Scientologists. So yes, they do get a bad rap. I don't know. I don't really want to get onto that too much as far as my political beliefs, because quite frankly, the jury's still out with me. I don't have enough conclusive evidence one way or the other. But yes, overwhelmingly, there seems to be a lot of negative innuendo pointed your way. So you seem like more of the Scientologist viewpoint that I've experienced from speaking to people in the past. So I would think that you would be more of the accurate Scientologist as opposed to the earlier caller. Again, thanks for taking the time to view. I don't have a whole lot of time left here, but I do want to, in this last few seconds, thank everybody for taking the time and opportunity to view here this evening. Excuse me. And I would like to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. We are here live every Thursday from 9 to 10 on Channel 10, except we won't be here next Thursday because there was a mini studio class, and so that's going to preempt our show. And so we won't be here next week. The following week, or the first Thursday in March, we'll be back. Please also take the opportunity to check out Therefore I Am with our partner in crime, Jeff Contreras, every Tuesday at 10 on Channel 10. And again, please, in your own lives, if you could just consider how you can be a receptor of positive things, and you can be a positive change person. You can make positive change.